is emotional intelligence? Emotional intelligence refers to the ability to identify and manage one's own emotions, as well as the emotions of others. Emotional intelligence is generally said to include at least 3 skills: emotional awareness, or the ability to identify and name one's own emotions, the ability to harness those emotions and apply them to tasks like thinking and problem solving, and the ability to manage emotions, which include both regulating one's own emotions when necessary and helping others to do the same. As you know, we are in a very high political time, and it's very important if executives are going to be successful, not only to harness their own emotions, but understand the emotions of those they're leading. It's imperative that as a leader, we empathize, we communicate clearly, and we really build meaningful relationships, especially since COVID-19. We've come to realize that so many people are home now and they're struggling. They're out of the office, they're working from home. Everything has changed since March of this year, and we're going on 6 months of dealing with this COVID-19 and working from home and having to pivot, make an adjustment to how we're doing business and an adjustment to how we work and how we communicate with each other. So it's very important that in emotional intelligence, what does it mean to be emotionally intelligent? An emotionally intelligent individual is both highly conscious, they are highly aware of their emotions, their emotional state, even negativity, frustration, sadness, or something more subtle, and able to identify and manage them. Such people are especially tuned in to the emotions that others experience. It's understandable that a sensitivity to emotional signals, both from within oneself and from one's social environment, can make one a better friend, a parent, a better leader, a better romantic partner. Fortunately, these skills can be learned. One of the things that we're realizing as we're communicating with executives is that executives now have to be more patient than they've ever been before. Executives now have to understand that people are working from home, their children are home with them. It's not like it used to be in the office, and usually the old school, the boss could kind of bark orders and say, this is the way this is going to get done, get this done. Now we have to take into consideration that it's not just our employee we're dealing with. Now we're dealing with their family, we're dealing with their children, we're dealing with added stress, because it used to be where your children were in school 6 or 7 hours in the day and the employee could focus just on their work. But now they're dealing with family at home, they're dealing with the adjustments of economies, they're dealing with the adjustments of not even being able to go out and eat inside of a restaurant. So life has changed. So emotional intelligence has become necessary and super important to the success of your organization and to the success of your team. So it's very important that we learn it and we understand the 7 components of emotional intelligence and of self-awareness. The first 2 deal with the leader. You have to become self-aware, know your emotions, understand your feelings, understand what you're feeling, understand what your emotional state is at any given time. And then self-regulation. How do I regulate those emotions? Because as a leader, it's very easy to get frustrated. Things have changed. Things are not working like they used to work. So it is imperative that the leader is able to self-regulate. Take those emotions and control them and not be reactive, be proactive. So it's very important that today's leader, I tell people we're on Zoom 24/7. Take a break. It's been said that if you're on Zoom for 45 minutes, take yourself a 15-minute break. Put that into practice. Take a break where you're able to defuse, able to digest all the information that you're taking in, able to check yourself, how you're feeling and how you're reacting and acting and the emotions and the expressions as a leader, and then knowing how to regulate those emotions and have self-control, which leads to self-actualization. When you deal with your team, it is important that as a leader, you know you have social awareness. Know your environment, know what your people are dealing with, know even the climate in the room, know how people are feeling, try to find out why they're feeling that way so that you can empathize, so that you can relate, so that you can show your team, we're in this together, we're a team, I care about you, I want to make sure that you're successful, because if you're successful, the company's successful. So I want to make sure that your needs are being met. How are you emotionally? How are you doing spiritually? How are you doing physically? How are you taking care of yourself? How are you diffusing? Remember that Dr. John Maxwell said it best. Nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. So as a leader, it's imperative that you connect with your people on a consistent basis, check on them. Sometimes not just to give them a task, but just check on them. Hey, how are you? How are you doing? If you can't communicate by social media, by Zoom, then maybe put into practice sending your team a text. Hey, just a quick text, checking up on everybody, making sure my leaders are okay, making sure that you know I'm here if you need anything, or if you need someone to talk to, someone to communicate with, I want to make myself available. Social regulation. You know, in a time that so much is changing and is changing so rapidly, how do we regulate the emotions that the team is feeling? How do we direct those emotions into positive strengths for the organization? So it's very important that we know how to regulate how the team is feeling. And one way to do it is by daily connecting with your team, knowing what they're doing, how they're feeling, showing your support, showing how much you care, making yourself available, not only to bark orders, but to communicate with them, to understand them, to hear them out, to know what they're dealing with, and how to regulate those emotions to become more effective and more efficient by holding them accountable. Empathy, again, how are you relating with your team? I tell people all the time, empathy is so important and so needed. The best way to identify empathy is get in somebody else's shoes. Your social skills, how do you communicate? And of course, everything you do with emotion and do with great passion. Self-awareness, being conscious of your own feelings and motives. Emotionally intelligent people often demonstrate a high level of self-awareness. You know your emotions affect yourself and others, and you don't allow your emotions to control you. Especially in a time that so much is changing and we see so much in the nation going on. And to top it off, it's not just COVID-19, we're dealing in the middle of a political season. It's very important that we become very self-aware, and not only self-aware, but we manage, self-regulate. You don't want to explode. You don't want to just voice your opinion and not take into consideration the opinions of others. You don't want to, just because you feel a certain kind of way, explode on your team and tell your team, well, this is the way I want it, take it or leave it. It's imperative that you self-regulate, that you hone those emotions, and that you express what's positive and what's going to move the team forward. Avoid conversations that are going to create conflict in your team. Sometimes you're going to agree, sometimes you're going to disagree, especially in a political year. There's going to be a lot of disagreement. You're going to have the left, you're going to have the right, and you're going to have some that are right in the middle. I tell people, keep religion and keep politics out of the workplace, because you're there to work and to produce and to keep the organization's mission statement and the vision. So it's important that we learn and practice self-control, self-regulation. Motivation. People with emotional intelligence are productive and driven. You think about the big picture and act and assess how your actions will contribute to long-term success. Motivation. I tell people every day, set a time where you're waking up, giving yourself enough time to get yourself motivated, get yourself pumped up. Some people is running a mile in the morning. Some people is hitting the gym in the morning, your home gym, since we can't go to the gym. Some people is having a cup of coffee with their newspaper and just reading. What I tell people, and it works for me, but of course, it's up to you. One of the things I've learned is to stay away from social media first thing in the morning, because with so much going on, it can get you hyped, it can get you down, and you want to be motivated from the time you wake up. And you have to find within yourself what motivates you. What gets you pumped up in the morning? What gets you on fire? What gets you to want to do more? What gets you to be excited throughout the day, that when you talk to your team, that excitement comes across, that your team will feel your motivation, that you have their best interest in mind, that your team is going to succeed, that you're going to make it together. How is your motivational climate on a daily basis? And I tell my people, don't give yourself excuses. Motivation is something that you have to pump yourself up. You have to get yourself in a state of mind that you're going to be unstoppable and you're going to accomplish every single goal you set for yourself, every task. Because every time you fulfill a task, you begin to feel good about yourself. You're going to feel motivated. You're going to feel excited. You're going to feel positive. So it's very important that you find what's going to motivate you, what's going to pump you up, what's going to keep you excited, what's going to keep you connected, because that's going to reflect to your team. If you're motivated, if you're down, whatever you're going through, whatever emotion is going to come out. And your team is going to not only affect you, it's going to affect your team. It can also affect your family at home, being that most of us are working from home now. Next is empathy. Emotionally intelligent people are less likely to be self-centered. Instead, you empathize with others and their situations. You tend to be a good listener, slow to judge, and understanding of the needs and wants of others. For this reason, an emotionally intelligent person is often seen as a loyal, compassionate friend. In other words, we live in a time right now where we need each other. There's no way you're going to succeed if you don't rely on your team, especially if you're a leader. You need your team. Empathize with them. Listen to them. They're working from home. Life has changed. Some people are taking it harder than others. Get in their shoes. I told people, as a leader, don't be quick to judge. Get to know the heart of your people. Open sessions, you know, I love, for example, on the chamber, every time we meet, Megan has put into practice, you know, share your victories. And that's been amazing because everybody's sharing the positives. And then she also asked us, share your struggles and how can we help you with whatever you're struggling with. So that shows a boss that cares. It shows a leader that is compassionate. It shows a leader that cares about you, the individual. They want you to succeed. So they empathize. They want to know your situation. They want to know what you're going through. A leader that is constantly judging his people is a leader that's going to have constant turnover. One of the things that I do when I consult teams, I look at the climate of the organization and I ask. And sometimes I'm surprised when I ask the boss or the leader, how's the climate of your organization? It's positive, it's good, they're motivated, they're excited to work here. And then when I walk the line and ask the employees, hey, how do you feel about working here? They're disgruntled, they're upset. Some of them have said, well, the leader never walks the line. The leader never leaves his office to come and communicate with us and find out how we're doing and how we're feeling. As a boss, as a leader, it will do you good to walk the line. Ask about Johnny's softball game. Ask about the family. If they went down the shore over the weekend, how was it? Be excited about the life of your people. Ask. not to be nosy. And of course, they share whatever they want to share. They need to know that they've got their freedom. But if they tell you, hey, we went down the shore this week, how was it? What did you do? Again, show them that you care. Show them that you empathize. If they tell you, look, I can't produce like I used to produce because I'm dealing with a situation at home. Maybe I'm dealing with a health issue. Maybe I'm dealing with some family issues. Empathize with them. Get in their shoes. Maybe as a boss, give them a break. Maybe take some tasks off their plate. Ask them, are we requiring of you too much? Sometimes as a leader, you're putting too much on one person. It's important that you build such a communication channel that your people are able to say how they feel, what they're going through, and get your feedback and get your input, where you're showing them at all time how much you really care about them and you care about their situation. Social skills. It's easier for you to collaborate and work in teams. You tend to be an excellent leader because of your strong communication skills and ability to manage relationships. One of the things that I tell a leader, don't get caught up in a few that may be disgruntled in the team. If you feed to negativity, negativity is going to spread throughout your team. If you feed into positivity, then positivity is going to spread through your team. What you sow is what you reap. I tell leaders, even when people come to me and they're disgruntled, they're dealing with difficulties, they're upset, they're in disagreement with their leader, one of the things that I put into practice is be a good listener. And when I respond, I usually respond, I need to further look into this. I'm going to try to find a solution. I'm going to talk to your supervisor, and I'm going to try to find something that's mutually beneficial for you and for that person. In other words, I'm going to look for a solution in order for the team to stay positive, to stay motivated, and to stay encouraged. So that's part of your social skill set. As a leader, never get dragged into agreeing with negativity, but always turn that thing around through collaboration, through communication. How can we turn this thing around? And I know it's negative, but how can we make it positive? We're a team. So a team is not always high. A team is not always low. A team is not always good. Sometimes we're going to make mistakes. But one thing that I realized about humans, if we empathize, if we communicate, if we work together at finding a solution, we're going to find it. And when we find that solution, it's going to make us more efficient and more effective. If you start to feed on negativity, what you're going to end up is constant turnover. Sometimes organizations say to me, I can't find me a good worker. Well, the reason you can't find a good worker is because you feed into negativity. And the problem is this, that when people don't feel appreciated, people do not feel that they're heard, people do not feel that they're important, it's very easy for them to leave the organization. So I tell most leaders, take the time to sit down with your people, communicate effectively, ask them how they feel, don't be quick to judge. Living life with passion. I'm passionate about what I'm doing. I'm passionate about my organization. I'm glad that you're a part of it. I want you to help me take this organization where it's never been before. I trust you. I believe in your skill set. I hired you, or I made you a part of my team because I believe that you're gifted. I believe that you're going to be a blessing to the organization. I believe that you're going to help us to push the organization forward. Instead of always being negative. Have you ever had that boss that no matter what you do or no matter what you tried, they would always come and talk about the negatives and never gave you credit for the positives, never said one good thing you did, but they were quick to point out all the negativity and all the wrong in the organization? Well, my friend, let me tell you something. Those type of leaders are struggling right now because people will work harder for you when they see you living life with passion. They see you living life with great concern and great care. A passionate person is someone who's in touch with what they truly love. They're alive, they're courageous. It takes a lot of courage and effort to pursue what you love. They don't live in other people's opinions or what others want for them, but they stand up for what they want, dream, desire, and are passionate to pursue it. The evidence of desire will always be in your pursuit. I tell people all the time, look, the evidence of what you desire is always going to be identified by action. You know, we have a lot of people that want to succeed in business. I have a lot of leaders that tell me I should. And my friend, as long as you stay in the realm of I should, you're going to give yourself an excuse not to accomplish and not to step it up. You have to wake up in the morning with passion and say, instead of I should, I must. I must get better. I must become a better listener. I must become a better helper. I must become one that is really, really motivated to encourage others. You know what? I'm going to empathize with people. I'm going to understand my team. I'm going to love my team. I'm going to build my team up. I'm going to encourage my team. I want my team to be successful in every aspect of life. When you live with passion and you live with desire and you live in the realm of pursuit, I'm pursuing my dreams. I'm not going to let COVID-19 stop me. I'm not going to let the limitations that we have right now stop me, but I'm going to press in like I've never pressed in before. I'm going to accomplish greater things than I've ever accomplished before. Again, living life with great passion. What does this skill look like? Viewed as empathetic person by others. Do others, when they see you, do they say, you know, he or she, they're empathetic? Excellent problem solver. When you're presented with a problem, are you the one to seek solutions or are you the one just to complain? See, my friend, an effective leader not only acknowledges that something is wrong, but works with the team to find a resolution. Not afraid to be vulnerable and share your feelings. Look, we're all humans going through this process called life. I tell people, you know, we're all spiritual beings experiencing a natural life. You know, Dr. Wayne Dyer used to say, if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. It's very important that as a leader, you share your feelings. Sometimes you're frustrated. Sometimes you're not uppity. Share it with your team. Let your team know. Be vulnerable. Look, I don't always have the answers. I'm not always right. Sometimes I make mistakes. Sometimes I get frustrated. Sometimes I get up in the morning, don't want to do anything. See, when a leader is vulnerable and people begin to see that you're like them, that you deal with the same struggles, that you're dealing with some of the same emotions that we're all going through due to this COVID-19 and due to this election year and due to this season that we're in right now. People will empathize with you. We're human. We are all going through similar situations at home, at work, with family. Don't think that you have to be Superman all the time. Sometimes you have to be vulnerable and share your feelings and what you're going through. And if you empathize with your team will empathize with you. Where we build a culture of understanding, creativity, and solutions, not more problems. How do we resolve? Remember that COVID-19 caused us to pivot. In that pivot, we've had to switch everything the way we used to do it. We're thinking different. We're acting different. We're doing things differently. Set boundaries. You're not afraid to say no. I tell people an emotional intelligence have the ability to say no. When you say no to something, you're saying yes to something else. Sometimes we get so frustrated because we don't know how to say no and we keep taking on tasks. And then we start failing because we've taken on too much. Maybe it's only me that's been there. Maybe you've never been there. But if you've been there, you know what I mean. You're the yes person. So at work, they tell you, do this, I got it. And then they tell you, do this, I got it. And then somebody else throws something else on you. Don't worry about it. I'll take care of it. And then everybody goes home at 5. Or everybody gets off of Zoom at 5 because, well, most of us are working from home now. And you're there till 9, 10 o'clock. Now your emotions are starting to mess with you. You're feeling frustrated. You're feeling unappreciated. You're feeling, I should have said no. But you're afraid to say no. One of the things I learned, if you can't handle it, do not be afraid to tell your boss, tell your leader, I can't do it. I need help. There's no way that I can get it done on time. So I'm not going to say yes, not because I don't want to. I'm not going to say yes because I can't. Sometimes you got to be brutally honest even with yourself. If something that you're going to say yes to is going to get you frustrated, is going to mess with your emotions, then it is better to say no than to say yes to something that's going to lead you down a path of emotional distress. So it's important that you're honest. Can get along with people in different situations. Again, we live in a culture that is closer than it's ever been. Dealing with people. Now we have to deal through Zoom. I tell people avoid text and avoid emails because they don't show emotion. I know some people don't like to pick up the phone. I know some people don't like to do a Zoom. They prefer to send a text. Well, the problem with a text is that emotions can be misinterpreted. You might send something, somebody might send you a paragraph this long. And I used to realize that and leading so many people as I lead in our outreach center. And people used to pour their heart out to me. And because I would be in a rush, I would answer, great, I'm with you, great job. And thinking I'm responding. And instead I was getting people that were getting offended because they felt that I was not connecting with them. So I tell people, don't be in a rush to give a response. It's okay to pause back, because sometimes we feel somebody texts us or somebody sends an email and I got to respond right away. You don't have to do that. Take your time so that when you respond showing that you care, showing that what they've written is important, showing that you are communicating effectively, that you've received information and you've digested the information and now you're going to give a response. Because sometimes we all do it to ourselves. We run in a rush and we don't mean no harm. And we think we're communicating, but we're not, because we don't know how the person on the other side is perceiving and receiving our response. So it's important once in a while to tell those on the other side, let's do a Zoom. I want to see your face. Let's talk. Let's dialogue. Let's connect. Let's make sure that we're on the same page. It's very important that you do that with your team as often as you can. Able to shrug off a bad moment and move on. Look, we're all going to experience bad moments. We're all going to experience challenges. We're all going to experience difficulty. How are you communicating? What does this skill look like? Ask open-ended questions. Get the feedback from your people. You know that most people want to feel appreciated. They want to feel, you know, you care about me. You ask questions because you care about my feedback. Don't just be the one that's always giving the answer, but be one that listens and receives feedback. And then based on the free feedback that you get, you communicate back with your people. Can accept constructive criticism without making excuses or blaming others. It's imperative that when you're a leader, receive constructive criticism. And what I tell people, Be honest, but with solutions. Don't ever throw somebody under the bus. Don't ever talk somebody down. And as a leader, not come with viable solutions to build the team up. Don't just chastise your team and then leave them hanging. A good leader, you bring correction, you bring criticism, but then you also bring solutions, how we can make the situation better. It's very important that as a leader, you just don't leave your team on a down. I came, I yelled, I chastised, I told you everything you did wrong, and I'm done. I'm out of the room. A good leader finds solutions. You know, and you tell your team what you expect. What are your expectations of your team? A good leader is EQ requires outstanding listener. Not only what you see. Sometimes people tell you, I'm all right. I'm all right. Is there anything wrong? I'm all right. But they're slamming their books. They're throwing a pen across the room. They're hitting the table real hard. Well, you know that based on that level of communication, they're not all right. Learn to be a good listener, but also look for the signs. Is your team frustrated? Why are they frustrated? What can I do to make it better? Be a good listener. I tell people all the time, listen to learn, not listen to respond. The problem with most of us is that we get defensive. I'm not wrong, you're wrong. That's why most marriages don't work. Because instead of listening to learn, we listen to respond, and sometimes we listen long enough just to get a good comeback. Wait, okay, you put this on the table, but wait till you hear my comeback, because in your mind, you're not listening to the heart. You're preparing your comeback so that you really listen. And a good, emotionally intelligent person is an outstanding listener. What is said and what is not said, because they read the body language. That's important. Not afraid to admit your mistakes and apologize. One of the things that I realized in COVID-19, especially if you're going to become effective and emotional intelligence, is this: do not be afraid to admit when you make mistakes. I tell people it's easier not to hide a mistake. Just put it out there. We made a mistake, than putting all this effort and all this work to cover your mistake. I've learned that, you know what? Just tell it, look, I made a mistake. I apologize. It's done. But when you cover a mistake, that's a lot of work. You're going to keep building up, or you're going to try to find somebody to blame, which then deals with your ethics. And as a leader, you should be ethical. So I tell people, when you're a leader, don't be afraid. I made a mistake. I apologize for it. Let's make the adjustments and let's move on. Don't dwell in your mistakes. Self-motivated, I shared that before, and understand your actions and your behaviors. That's someone that reflects good, emotional, intelligent skills. Know your actions, know who you are. What are the signs that you may be lacking emotional intelligence? Now, this is good, because this you can write down. These are the signs that show you're lacking this skill, and this skill is necessary if you're going to succeed. This skill is imperative to have. So, number one, trouble being assertive or taking charge. One of the things that I realized as a leader, you have to be assertive. You have to believe what you're doing, and you have to stand on what you're doing, and not be afraid to say, I stand on it. I believe it. I live by it, and I stand by what I'm doing. Be assertive. Be not afraid to take charge. You know, one of the things that hurts an organization is when you have a lot of people that see something wrong and they're afraid to make a decision. As a matter of fact, I'll tell you something. Your employer is going to respect you more if you're assertive and you just make decisions and take charge to get things done. The boss is not always going to be around. It's important that you learn how to take charge. But if you don't, maybe you're lacking emotional intelligence. Don't handle feedback well. I've come across a lot of people like this, especially when I coach executives. Man, when you give them feedback that is not what they're expecting and you're not telling them how great they are and how wonderful they are, they can't take feedback well. They hold grudges. Look, life is changing right before our eyes. You know, maybe it's with age, but the older I get, the less grudges I hold. That is way too much stress. You're messing up your mental, your emotional, your spiritual, and your physical. I tell people, it's important to let the grudges go. We get upset for a little while, but man, let it go. Find a solution, implement the solution, and let it go. Nobody wants to be in an environment that every day is the same complaint. Every day is the same situation. Every day is the same issues and no solutions. Can't move past your mistakes. You know, if you can't move past the mistakes you've made, then you're never going to grow. I tell people all the time, mistakes are a stepping stone. Look at them, acknowledge them, be sincere, be truthful, but then move on. Don't stay stuck or be afraid to make decisions or to take initiative because of past mistakes. Feel misunderstood all the time. People that feel misunderstood all the time sometimes end up emotionally shipwrecked. It's very important that you know that you communicate effectively, and especially in a work environment, don't take everything personally. You can't sit there and feel like you're dying because somebody says something negative about you. Don't take everything personal. Learn to let it go. Learn to receive whatever is being told to you and then let it go. I tell people, I put into practice. I retain the good, and whatever is not good for me, whatever is not healthy, I throw it aside. Judgmental. A judgmental person is hard to live with and it's hard to work with. Easily offended. You know, we live in a culture today that people don't know how to disagree. You know, when I was growing up, you know, a few years ago, we used to have debates. And at the end of the debate, we shook hands and it was good. But we live in a culture today that is easily offended. And that's why it's important that communication be open, communication be clear, because you want to avoid offense in the workplace. Offended people don't work well. Offended people are not going to produce for you. So it's very important that you talk clearly. And if somebody tells you this offends me, then I'm going to do everything in my power, everything in my effort not to do it, because it's not my intent to offend you intentionally. And they have difficulty maintaining relationships. There's some people that go from relationship to relationship to relationship to relationship. They're most likely they're lacking EQ. Don't understand your own emotions. I tell people, you got to understand who you are. You got to understand your own emotions. You got to understand what makes you tick. You got to understand what makes you move. You got to understand what motivates you. Some are born with emotional intelligence, and for others, it can be learned. Improving your interactions with others is one way to learn EQ. Being empathetic doesn't come naturally for everyone. Make an effort to put yourself in other people's shoes. It is important to empathize and make a connection with people at their emotional level through concern, love, and understanding. How do you handle difficult situations? What is your first go-to? I want you to think about these 4 things. When you are challenged, when you find yourself in a difficult situation, what's your first go-to? Think about that. And If it's negative, how can we change that today? How can we become better today? How can we improve today? And that's the end of the PowerPoint. Now, let me share with you that next week, you need to register because the county, so register for each one. Next week, I'm going to be covering 10 ways to increase your emotional intelligence. Look, I had to learn this. I served in the military 12 years. It was just receiving orders, giving orders, receiving orders. And then I became a pastor. And I became a motivational speaker, and I became a coach to executives. And I had to learn empathy. And I had to learn how to relate. I had to learn how to listen to people. I had to learn how to apologize, because sometimes what we say comes across wrong. Never be in a position that you're afraid to apologize and to admit when you've been wrong, because people can connect with people that carry themselves with humility. But when a leader is arrogant, you know, I tell people one thing is ignorance. My definition of ignorance is this: you don't know. So you're ignorant because you don't know. My definition of arrogance is you do know, but you continue to do it anyway. So some people are not ignorant. They know the right from wrong. They know how to help their team. They know what they should do, but they choose to be arrogant. I know it hurts my team. I know it's hurting my relationship. I know it's hurting my people, but they continue to do it anyway because they're not willing to change. So emotional intelligence can be learned. Again, self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, empathy, social skills, passion, and motivation. If you can get these as an individual, you're going to become an effective leader. People are going to love to work for you because they know that you care for them, you understand them, you're not lazy, you want to make sure they're okay, they're healthy, and you're willing to admit when you're wrong. See, as a leader, it's not just giving. It has to be also receiving and adjusting, because I love the team and I don't want to hurt my team. And I don't want to do anything that's going to cause me to lose my team because I don't show enough empathy towards my team. So that's what I have for today. Next week, we're going to discuss in detail 10 ways to increase emotional intelligence. The chamber has been gracious. Megan Hunter, an amazing president, and she's opened this up to the community. So that's why we're going to put it on YouTube, make it available. And each session will be available. So even if you miss session one will be on the YouTube channel. This is session 2. But I covered on this session a lot of what I covered in session 1. But next week is going to be exciting because we're going to put all these skills to work. We're going to put it all together, and it's going to help us to become better.